Welcome to Comic Tropes. I'm your host, Chris. Transformers. Now that's a franchise that's been around here in the United States since 1984. Anything that's been around that long is going to have its highs and its lows. You might think that its lowest might have been a movie like, say, Transformers 5. And yeah, that is a low, but no, there is something much, much worse. There was a comic and a toy line in 2006 that wasn't just bad, it wasn't just a dud, it offended people. This was Transformers Kiss Players, and it introduced the idea that these giant transforming robots really just needed kisses from young girls to properly power up. It's worse than it sounds. This comic is cursed, and you will be worse for having made it through this video. By the end, I'm going to have broken down the comic for you, but I'm also going to share with you a bit about the artist and what the company behind this whole line was thinking. Without any further ado, please consider hitting like and subscribe, and let's get into Transformers Kiss Players. Kiss Players is heavily embedded in the existing cartoon continuity, so I need to set some of this up for you. In 1986, the animated Transformers movie was released to theaters, followed by a third season of the TV show in 1987. In the movie, heroic Autobot leader Optimus Prime died in a fight with evil Decepticon leader Megatron. Optimus Prime passed the matrix of leadership to Ultra Magnus, but the true successor ended up being the young Hot Rod. He evolved into Rodimus Prime and fought Galvatron, an upgraded version of Megatron. Rodimus defeated Galvatron by hurling him out into space, and the TV cartoon later picked up with Galvatron having landed on a burned-out planet and leading the Decepticons in a continuing battle against the Autobots. There wouldn't seem to be much room for more story to take place between this movie and the next season of the TV show. But Kiss Players introduces about a year's worth of story that fits right in the middle. Most of this was told through small radio plays which were put onto CDs that were sold with the 3 toys in the line. There were also 3 comic book stories that fit within those radio plays, which were published in the pages of toy collector's magazine Dengeki Daio. The radio plays established that when Galvatron was thrown through space, he actually crashed on Earth, Tokyo specifically, destroying much of the city. It turned humanity against the Transformers. As far as starting points for a story goes, this is a very depressing one. We're told that the leader of our heroes accidentally killed millions. That puts him up there with heroes like Genghis Khan and Rasputin. To be fair, Rodimus Prime feels so bad about this that he relinquishes custody of the matrix of leadership. He just gives up being leader and he becomes Hot Rod again. I don't see how that really takes responsibility for his actions. The manga starts off with our lead, Atari, walking down the city streets, moping about how much she misses her parents, who died when Galvatron crashed on Tokyo. That's definitely what Transformers was missing before this. Existentialist ennui. By the way, you might look at Atari and think, oh, okay, that's a little girl. But no, according to the story, Atari and the other characters you're about to meet are adults. They can all drive cars. Artist Yuki Oshima has said that he wanted to make the characters look cute. It depends on your definition of cute, but these girls all look underage, and that's the main reason the majority of people don't like it. Yuki Oshima was also a toy designer for Takara Tomy. One of his well-regarded toys, for instance, was RC. But these toys are all about panty shots. This is the actual box art he created. These toys are for perverts.
Perverts in disguise.
Akari laments about how she was the only one who survived and she feels awful. Meanwhile, the Earth Defense Command rushes into the city, declaring that Transformers have invaded past the Yamanote train station. Let me explain some more stuff that happens in those radio plays that were included in the toys but isn't really explained in the comic book itself. Basically, when Galvatron crash landed on Earth, he blew up and obviously killed a lot of people. So the Earth Defense Command was established, and they kicked all Transformers off Earth, including the good guys, the Autobots. They also established something called an anti-electron field around Earth, which basically just makes Transformers sick. However, Galvatron cells were spread out over a wide area, and they infected animals. And those animals sort of turned into giant robots that look like Megatron for some reason, but they're called Legion. They're sort of mindless robots. And yeah, you just sort of need to know that. It doesn't make the story make sense, but it sort of fits together a little better. The busty lady in the kimono is Commander Amao, leader of the EDC, because nothing says ready for battle like a pretty dress and umbrella. One of the EDC troops runs up to inform her that one of their teammates, Xiao Xiao, is engaged in battle and they need to help her. Amao says not to worry because she could never afford to lose one of her KISS players. Then she motorboats her soldier. Cutting back to Atari, she fell off the ledge that she was walking on and whines about how it hurt. But then she says she wonders if her dead parents can feel any pain now that they're gone. She complains that she just wants to die. An evil voice hears her, since she opted to talk about this out loud, and asks her if she really wants to die. Who said this? One of the Legion. And I want you to brace yourself for what comes next, because what you're about to see is way crazier than any of the leg-humping robots or the jive-talking robots that you saw in the Michael Bay movies. Atari is cornered by a car with no driver. This won't surprise you, but it transforms into Legion. This guy, who looks like Megatron, but with a gigantic tongue that looks like, well, something you'd be more likely to find on a fertility statue. This is so over the top. That tongue literally seems to have a urethra tube sticking out. And if you thought Bumblebee peeing on a soldier was more bodily fluid than we should see out of robots, it won't help that Legion excretes more fluid than Venom or the Xenomorph in Alien Resurrection. This episode is taking longer than usual to produce because every time I see that, I need to take another shower to feel clean again. Before Legion can kill Atari, another giant robot heroically kicks him in the back, and Atari realizes she doesn't actually want to die. But before this robot can do any more to help, he falls to his knees, we get a very important to the story panty shot, and the robot begins to vomit out a person. The person is a naked girl covered in, we'll call it Transformers oil, because it seems to be lubrication. The robot explains that he has reached his KISS player fusion limit. Again, the comic doesn't really explain any of this very well, but Galvatron cells also landed on some people, and those people gain the ability to become KISS players. What that means is that they can merge with and power up a Transformer, but only by kissing them. Yeah, the EDC figured this out somehow and decided to build their own army of Transformers that don't really have any personalities, and they're called Autoroopers. You heard that right. Autoroopers, not Autotroopers. That would make sense. No, this portmanteau literally translates to Autorooper, which can be confirmed by looking at the toys that were released to Western customers. The Autorooper tells Atari that a kiss is required, but Atari doesn't get it. I don't blame her, no one's explained anything. Commander Amao takes notice of the fact that the robot senses Atari is a KISS player and tells her to just kiss the robot. Atari is still slow on the uptake, so the rest of the EDC fire Kremzeek bullets at Legion in an attempt to slow it down. This is a deep pull from the cartoon, where Kremzeek was an energy being that could disable Transformers. Apparently, they've been collected and weaponized by the EDC off-panel. Legion is not really affected and uses his massive tongue to punch off one of the Autorooper's arms. The Autorooper then gives Atari a guilt trip, asking her if she will regret doing nothing. Atari succumbs to the pressure, kissing the Autorooper, merging with it, and begins to grow a new arm. Atari's robot gets into a brief and admittedly cool-looking fight, destroying the Legion. She is then overwhelmed and vomits before waking up the next day. Atari instantly has her privacy invaded when EDC teammate Ringo jumps into her window and forces a kiss on Atari, even biting her to see what she tastes like. Before we can even take all of that in, we cut to Narita Airport. Optimus Prime's dead body is being unloaded, and a girl, or at least a girl's prominent butt, says that it's been a long time since she's seen him. That was the first of 3 issues, and I'll give you the rest of this story, but don't expect it to actually build up to anything, because the comic was really just there to highlight the toys and hopefully make them seem cool, whereas the radio plays were the real story behind the whole fiction. Artist Yuki Oshima, of course, said that he wanted to capture people's attention. Fair enough, mission accomplished. But I'm not sure that a kid's cartoon needed naked girls and penis tongues added to it to make it cool and attention-worthy. Issue 2 starts with a flashback dream sequence. We see Xiao Xiao on the beach, about to kiss Melissa, who says that she understands. But then Optimus Prime swings by to block Xiao Xiao and take Melissa on an adventure, leaving Xiao Xiao behind. Xiao Xiao wakes up, basically naked and locked in a tube with a dismembered Legion head above her. Oh, and that lock around her neck, that isn't a restraint, that's just a piece of jewelry that she wears. I don't get it either. But ignore all that because things are about to get gross in a whole new way. There are layers to this comic. Xiao Xiao looks up and sees dismembered Kiss players locked in tubes with Legion heads. Someone has kidnapped Xiao Xiao while she was unconscious and is performing weird experiments on Kiss players like her. And the Legion heads are still animated and are eating the girls. Also laughing about it. Fun for the whole family. Before things get too interesting, we cut to the EDC, who is at the airport taking Optimus Prime's body to study. This is all being watched by the lady in the catsuit from the end of the last issue, who we now see is Melissa. Melissa is also known as Marissa. It's just that in Japan, they have different pronunciations, so they call her Melissa on all the written artwork. But she's supposed to be the same character as Marissa Fairborn from Season 3 of the Transformers cartoon. That was Marissa Fairborn, who worked for the EDC, and in continuity, she was the daughter of G.I. Joe character Flint, whose real last name was Fairborn. We see that on his file card. So, yeah, actor Bill Ratner did the voice for Flint on the G.I. Joe cartoon and even voiced the character on an episode of the Transformers Season 3, The Killing Jar. So yeah, it was definitely supposed to be Flint. It's just another deep, deep pull of continuity. This comic works very hard to fit into that existing continuity. Melissa blows up a bridge to stop the EDC transport, and the EDC calls out that it's the Resistance. Then the Optimus Prime body pops open to reveal Ringo in an auto-rooper. It was a decoy, and she mows down Melissa's Resistance team members joyfully. However, Melissa notes a familiar-looking truck and leaps into action, slicing off the clothes of Atari and her EDC team members.
Autobots, we are now on an FBI most wanted list. Transform and run away!
Melissa is quickly incapacitated with a Kremzik bullet, but Melissa and her assless chaps don't give up that easily. She flicks her knife at the trailer, which cuts it open, implying Melissa has the strength of Hercules. And inside that trailer is Optimus Prime. Well, it's his corpse. Upon seeing Optimus, an auto-rooper ejects its driver and lunges onto Prime, devouring and merging with him, losing its mind. Melissa is shocked, but remembers playing basketball with Optimus and says she still thinks of him like a father, and then plants a big smooch on the monstrosity. Turns out that Melissa is also a Kiss player. Optimus is reborn, and this time he turns into a Dodge Ram pickup truck.
And it's the official vehicle of the movie Thor.
By the end of this story, Optimus Prime will die again, which means, if you count Kiss players and the Headmasters cartoon that followed Season 3 of the American cartoon, Optimus Prime dies 4 times in that continuity. Jesus only died and came back once, so I think we can all agree that Optimus Prime is superior. Back in the test tube, the Legion over Xiao Xiao sprouts mouth tentacles, getting ready to eat her. This is Japan dialed up to 11. She fights back, biting them, but the tentacles punch her in the gut and she's left helpless, until Hot Rod bursts in to help her, closing out the issue on a cliffhanger. Yes, Hot Rod, because as I explained, he felt so guilty for killing a bunch of people in Tokyo that he gave up the Matrix of Leadership and went back to being Hot Rod, not Rodimus Prime, his evolved form. It's very depressing. This comic wants you to eject at least 2 bodily fluids while reading it. The third issue picks up with Hot Rod utterly failing to help Xiao Xiao because of the EDC's anti-electron field, which makes him weak. He's grabbed by a bunch of Legion heads. Meanwhile, Atari is given some flowers by her Autorouper, but smacks them away. Meanwhile, Optimus Prime is haunted by the memories of Megatron and almost crushes Melissa before running away. Kinda crazy. Then the crazy continues. Ringo pops up, eats Atari's flowers, and then forces a kiss on Atari so that she can taste the flowers. An alarm ends Ringo's non-consensual attack. Optimus Prime is attacking the EDC for some reason and smashing his way through the Autorouper army. Hot Rod shows up and somehow Xiao Xiao found a way to kiss him and merge. Hot Rod assumes that this is an imposter Optimus Prime since Optimus was both dead and not crazy the last time he saw him. The two begin fighting. Atari apologizes to her Autorouper, kisses it willingly, and jumps in to tell the 2 Autobot leaders to stop fighting. And that is the very abrupt ending to these issues. There's no big enemy to fight, it's just one person telling 2 heroic leaders to stop fighting. Were you curious about who kidnapped Xiao Xiao and was doing all those experiments on her? This comic book does not answer that for you. But if you listen to the radio plays, apparently it does explain what was going on. Xiao Xiao takes everybody to something called, and I'm not making this up, the spiral vagina entrance, which takes everybody to the genital facility, which is hidden underneath the EDC. Turns out Commander Amao was doing all sorts of weird experiments in an attempt to bring her dead daughter back to life. So, real cute story there. The radio drama also has all of the Galvatron cells reconverge and draw all the Legion together to reform Galvatron. Optimus Prime dies again at this point, and Hot Rod throws Galvatron up into space. So, now everything is back to how it was left at the end of the movie and the beginning of Season 3. Nothing is learned. KISS players continued a bit more with some more story pages, following a young robotic girl named Teletran 15. She goes through time, and it's a confusing story that tries to wrap in multiple Transformers continuities. The EDC characters also form a band with some cassette tape Transformers and go on a world tour to make people like Transformers again. It's slightly less focused on underage-looking girls and strange tongues. Ultimately, there were only 3 toys produced for the original KISS Players line. That was Hot Rod, Optimus Prime, and an Autorouper. No Legion, unfortunately. After 2007, that line was pretty much forgotten. However, some of the toys in Japan did continue to include a cute girl figure with them. For instance, the last time I was in Japan, I picked up this Transformer because I like Nissan GTRs. This is Maximus, and he came with this little girl, like a racer girl. But there's no sort of story that implies, underage girls kissing the robots or having kisses forced on them, I should say. Instead, they're just sort of like race fans, so that makes a little more sense. I don't know. It was a very, very strange and creepy story. I want to tell you a little bit more about the artist and about what the toy company was thinking when they made this. But first, let's take a quick look at the fan art that came in this week. Jake McLean sent in this artwork, where I focus on what's important in life. Ryan Cole illustrated me in an homage to Action Comics number 775. You can see more at his Twitter. Masala Monkey has me messing with some very unique droids. Joseph Hazel envisions me getting my back broken by Bane. He also includes his Instagram. Michael Johnson liked my old intros where I would get sucked into comics, so he illustrated a version of that. You can see more on Twitter. Jesse Prince shows us what happens when Kurtz the Thief robot tries to steal from me. Phantom Lady steps in. Hannah sent in this great homage to Man of Steel. I'd probably be the Man of Jello. And finally, Mikey Ilkua painted this gorgeous cubist interpretation of comic tropes full of amazing references to past episodes. You can see more on Instagram. Folks, I'm always happy to share any artwork that has something specific to do with comic tropes, so if you'd like to have something like that featured, you can always email it to comictropes@gmail.com. And then on top of that, I'll pick one of those entrants to win a Gachapon prize. I'll actually only be doing this for about 2 more weeks, but I've still got a few Gachapon prizes, and they come out of the Gachapon machine that was donated by the Lunar Shine store. So, I've got 8 balls in here to represent the 8 entrants. Let's take a spin here real quick, and pick a winner. Alright, this week the winner is number... Oh, it says number 9. How many balls do I have in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I put in ball number 9 instead of ball number 8, so the closest would be number 8. Number 8, that was this artwork. You won a Gachapon prize. Sorry for the confusion there. I'm a real pro here. This part is maybe a little more work than it's worth sometimes. Let's take a look at what you won, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about artist Yuki Oshima and what Takara, the company, was thinking at the time. Let's spin this around, see what we got in here. That is... I always have fun trying to guess what these are. That is really hard. I'm not 100% sure because I don't see any distinctive logo. All I can tell you is it's probably some sort of robot that you can assemble. Let's get into talking just a little bit more about Kiss players. So we know that artist Yuki Oshima has said that he wanted to grab people's attention with this comic, and we know that he was trying to make the girls look cute. If we can set aside how young the girls look and how creepy it is that Atari is constantly being forced to kiss people and robots, I think we can all agree that Oshima is a good artist. The technical detail he delivers makes him a great fit for giant robots. He got his start making a fan comic about GoBots fighting Transformers, and more recently made a cover for a Mazinger vs. Transformers comic. He delivers exciting and clear action. But why did the toy company that made Transformers, Takara Tomy, decide to go this route? Well, Transformers was in a bit of a lull. In 2003, Takara released the Alternators line, which did fine, but was primarily aimed at collectors instead of the mainstream or young fans. From 2004 to 2005, the company was just putting out a handful of repainted existing toys. The Kiss Players was designed to test the waters, and the toy line's one consistently engaged audience were the readers of the Dengeki Hobby magazine. I would argue that Takara possibly underestimated their audience, just assuming that they were all a bunch of horn dog perverts and that this is what they wanted out of the toy line. I think that the sales kind of bear that out because they didn't continue to do Kiss Players for very long. But I also think that what they were trying to do was just put something small out to keep the brand alive, but that wouldn't necessarily be a huge, big idea that would step on 2007's Transformers, the movie, the live-action movie, because obviously that was a big deal, and they needed to just sort of test the waters with an idea, but keep things from getting in the way of this new direction that the Transformers line went. Transformers Kiss Players. It is something that I don't think you will find too many fans of, even within the Transformers fandom. And if you do, I think you gotta ask some serious questions about exactly what is it that they like. The story is very depressing, it's very perverted, but I will admit that the artwork of the Transformers themselves is pretty badass. Anyway, thank you very much for letting me curse you. I'll see you soon, and until that time, keep reading comics.